Hi, welcome to the Fit and Healthy Today show, and today our subject matter is macular degeneration, the degeneration of the macula. And what that is what the macula is part of the eye that allows us to see in detail the center of our world. And when you take it away, then we can't see the fine details. The symptoms of macular degeneration include blurring, distortion, dark spots, a loss of being able to see in the center, and then eventually it spreads to the peripheral vision. 80 to 85% are what are called atopic or dry macular degeneration, and that has to do with age progression process caused by some of these other factors that we'll talk about. But it takes time, and so therefore it can be stopped or it can be slowed. Now there is a fine, minute 5 to 15% of them that are neovascular, and what it's caused by is an abnormal growth of blood vessels in the retina or approaching underneath the wet retina. And what happens is these blood vessels will burst and they'll leak and they can cause scarring. So concern is with blood thinners. That can occur very, very quickly. Anything that in which vascular system all of a sudden fails immediately, especially in the small capillaries, can lend itself to neovascular. Most common cause of irreversible blindness, primarily in European people or European descendant people. But in the United States, the most common cause of blindness. So taking care of your macula is very important. Let's talk about the causes, and since we know that the majority of it happens over a lifetime, we're going to take a look at obviously the aging process. I think, in my opinion, primarily caused by nutritional deficiencies and a bad, lousy diet, particularly early on in life when we need it the most in order to grow healthy membranes. Diet low in antioxidants. Most people don't even take a decent multivitamin, and I'm not talking about getting a multivitamin at some grocery store or something. I mean something that actually absorbs, not something that's got a 3 to 5% absorption rate, but a good multiple vitamin high in antioxidants. A lot of people have poor digestion. They don't detox very well. They're sitting there down in the alcohol, eating French fries, burgers. Their diets absolutely stink. Their digestion ends up being a problem. They end up with acid reflux, so they don't break down their nutrients. It's like a vicious cycle that starts as a result of not eating properly. High blood pressure and diabetes, as well as certain high blood pressure medications and diabetic medications. So high blood pressure actually, can cause a bursting of the vascular system, and diabetes kind of eats the vascular system up. The sugars just deteriorate those small capillaries in the eyes and other places, particularly for you guys out there regarding impotence. Those small little capillaries are what feed your macula and feed your eyes. Smoking and environmental toxins, living in good old polluted places like Los Angeles, New York City, or if you're around pollutants, also having high toxic metal exposure, mercury, amalgam fillings. And they can preach all they want that it doesn't make a difference, but we know better because the scientific data doesn't back up people who say that these amalgam fillings, one of which I still got in my mouth, doesn't cause issues neurologically and with the vascular system. We know better. Arteriosclerosis, which actually means the hardening of the arteries. And when you don't have adequate amounts of bioflavonoid, vitamin C rich diet, and antioxidants, your vascular system gets hardened. And obviously when these small little capillaries and blood vessels get hardened, then you can't get blood supply in to your eyes, to your macula, to your body generally overall, and then you end up with other health issues in addition to macular degeneration. Smoking. Now remember, for every cigarette that you smoke, you deplete 25 to 50 milligrams of vitamin C. So vitamin C is very, very important to maintain the collagen matrix for vascular flexibility. So smoke that cigarette, you're going to end up with arteriosclerosis, and then what happens is the vascular system becomes very hardened, and you ain't going to get any circulation going anywhere. I think to determine potentially the cause of macular degeneration, there are some tests that doctors can perform. Obviously, checking the blood pressure and double checking to make sure that the blood pressure medications couldn't be causing you your macular degeneration. Hormone testing, testosterone, progesterone, estrogens, DHEA, thyroid hormones can contribute, or the lack thereof, to macular degeneration. Intestinal and digestion types of testings, permeability of the digestive tract, candida, parasites, docs can test for that. Blood sugar testing, obviously there's a lot of people out there that don't know that they're diabetic. Trust me, I know. They come in with their reports and they got a blood sugar of 160, 180, and they're like, I never knew I was diabetic. No telling how long those blood sugars have caused damage to the vascular system. Vitamin and mineral analysis. Doctors can perform these. I don't see them performed very often, but it kind of tells us whether or not, bottom line is, you are nutritionally deficient or you're not absorbing the vitamins and minerals from your foods. And then, of course, toxic, not toxic. Toxic metals, which various kinds can cause damage to the eyes. Mercury, lead, all those types of heavy metal types of exposures can cause issues with the eyes, and not just having to do with macular degeneration. Oh my gosh, you know, I should put a star in highlights by the word diet, because the diet is the most important thing that you can do for prevention of macular degeneration and the slowing and progression of macular degeneration. So, eat lots of fiber to remove the toxins. Remember, fiber binds to the heavy metals and toxins and all the chemicals and the pesticides that you're eating in your fruits and vegetables, and it removes them out. Keep the fiber, 30 to 35 grams of fiber per day. A glass of water every 2 hours. You can't detox on a cellular level and hydrate things without drinking water. Eat foods rich in carotenoids, particularly going to be your yellows, your purples, your oranges, and those are found in spinach, kale, carrots, yellow squash, celery, red grapes, mangoes, all the yummy things that I absolutely love and that I was raised with and that I eat. I know a lot of people, they weren't raised with these kinds of things, and that being the case, you're not too old to make the changes. Make the changes, and you know from all the other lectures that I do, these affect other things as well. But the eyes, they require a multitude of colors. We see a multitude of colors. Therefore, we have to eat a multitude of variety of full spectrum colors in order to see those colors. Avoiding excessive saturated fats, which increases inflammation, and no trans fats, no margarine. Look for trans fats in your, what I would like to see is healthy snacks instead of your potato chip type of stuff. Avoid sugar, caffeine, alcohol, charred meats. And I kind of, when I ran across that research, I'm like, I mean charred meats. And I'm not as concerned about the gas grill, but if you're sitting out there with the charcoal lighter and the charcoal out there and you're eating those charred meats, they're actually carcinogenic. And they actually are, then there's been some studies that support they're very hard on the eyes if you eat them all the time. Occasionally, sounds good. Not all the time. When you're talking about supplements that can be helpful for macular degeneration, probably the most studied supplement that I've seen is lutein. And lutein is found primarily in spinach and kale and a variety of vegetables. But it's one of the most studied. JAMA, which is the Journal of American Medical Association, you docs out there, how it works is it filters out the shortwave light, the blue lights, that cause damage to the macula. And actually, one study supported a 56% reduction in the development of macular degeneration just by having lutein supplementation. 20 milligrams of lutein esters a day. And I'm saying lutein esters. If you go into your local grocery store and say, oh, here's 20 milligrams, make sure it says 20 milligrams of lutein esters. You're not going to find that in a grocery store. You need a good health food store for that. In combination with zeaxanthin, and that is a carotenoid that has been shown to significantly reduce oxidation in the eye. Studies work very well together to stop or slow the progression of macular degeneration, or to prevent. Now, I take it to prevent. I have, and my eye doctor, Dr. Matamir, told me 3 years ago that my eyes had a propensity since I was very nearsighted for macular degeneration. And I'm like, I think I'm going to ward this off. So I do this, and there are formulas that come in this combination. Zinc, 30 to 45 milligrams with 2 milligrams of copper, studied for prevention and slowdown of macular degeneration. Bilberry. Now, we know a lot about bilberry from our World War II pilots when it comes to night vision, and they were eating, in Britain, they were eating a lot of these bilberries. You know, blueberries, bilberries, those types. They're very rich in certain chemical components that seem to feed the eyes, particularly having to do with night vision. And so what it basically does is it prevents oxidative damage, but it also helps strengthen the capillaries and the connective tissues in the eye and the retina. So it takes a pretty good amount of dosage, and these are in extract form, so you don't go into your local grocery store and grab bilberry. You need an extract form in a higher amount of dosage with a high percentage of certain types of the chemical compounds that are found in bilberry. Ginkgo biloba. Now, if you're on blood thinners, you can't do ginkgo, but ginkgo slightly thins the blood, but it also increases cerebral circulation. That means in your brain. And the studies show that increased blood flow to the brain and the eyes, you want to have at least 60 to 120 milligrams of extract twice a day. High potency multiple vitamin, and I mentioned that earlier, rich in antioxidants. A good quality, you can come into good stores and you can say, hey, what do you got? And hopefully they've got a comparative guide that they can open up to and say, okay, this one has a 99% absorption, 78% absorption, and not the 3 to 5% absorption I'm seeing with some of the major name brands out there that probably the majority of you are using. Ester C increases collagen and blood vessel or vascular flexibility, particularly mineral ascorbate vitamin C's. They stay in the body 12 to 24 hours and they help with collagen. Not only they are good for the eyes and the macula, they're good to keep us young and keep our skin nice as well so that we can hold moisture in our cells. Fish oils. Flax oil also came out for dry eye syndrome too. Reduces the risk of macular degeneration. Remember I mentioned how digestion can interfere or the absorption of nutrients? For those people who have digestion issues, add in some digestive enzymes to help you break down the good foods that you're eating in order to enable you to get the nutrients from the foods. Grapeseed extract. Now we know grapeseed and pine bark had some recent studies as far as anti-aging, and I know I have a couple of doctors in town. I know Dr. Lindbergh, whenever his patients tend to bruise really easily, will put his patients on grapeseed extract to help them with the bruising because it helps strengthen the capillaries. Guess what feeds your macula? Capillaries. CoQ10, and there's multiple studies that I found on CoQ10, and the studies range between 60 and 100 milligrams. CoQ10 has other benefits, but these studies show that they stopped or slowed the progression of macular degeneration. Hey, in my book, stopping, slowing, never having, you want that, okay? Exercise. I know, the word that you kind of go, gosh, I work 8 to 10 hours a day. If you can at least get some exercise 3 days a week, you know, somehow get up early one morning a week and then spend your weekend doing some form of some type of cardiovascular weight training, anything that gets your circulation moving. And our eye exercises also help. And you know, I had a cousin who had a cross-eyed issue, and the eye exercises helped. They used it to strengthen her muscles so that they didn't have to perform the surgery. But eye exercises can also increase circulation, particularly for those people who are at the computer screen for hours and hours, playing games or work, or sitting there with their books or whatever. Their eyes aren't getting much exercise and not much a change in vision. So those eye exercises help as well to strengthen the eyes as well as increase the circulation in the eye. Never thought I'd mention eye exercises, huh? Such a thing? It exists. Talk to your doc. Next, we're going to be moving on to the fitness portion of our show, and we're going to be reviewing some new yoga techniques. Thank you. Welcome to the fitness portion of our show. And as promised, I said for the next 7 shows, we're going to be working on these 7 different chakras and various exercises that you can do to help from an emotional health issue some of which we're gonna start with the bottom chakra. Chakra number 1, okay, which is responsible for you being grounded to the earth, your ties to the earth, your security, your stability, all tied in to what is called the first chakra, which sits right at the base by the coccyx bone. And so I'm going to show you 2 exercises today that will help stimulate that. I know you're going to kind of laugh, but if you do these exercises for the next 2 weeks until we have the next show when I work with the second chakra energy, I think you might notice a little bit more security and stability. You just seem to be a little bit more grounded and not flying all over the place with your anger and rage. So anyway, especially as school's starting, we have lots of extra stresses. So anyway, the first pose is down. It's called the thunderbolt pose. And you're grounded to the ground. Obviously, we've got the bottom part. You're on top of your knees with about a hand's width between your knees. If you have varicose veins issues or you're concerned about overstretching these knees, you can put a blanket underneath here and to hold you up just a little bit higher and soften that a little bit, particularly though with varicose veins. And what you'd like to do is be in this position probably for about a minute or so. And what you basically do, and I know you're going to get grossed, but do it anyway because it's for your health. You're going to sit here and you're going to squeeze your anus, your anal muscles together 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. And what you're going to do is you're going to run through probably 4 sets of that, just like any other exercise, taking about a minute to maybe do 12 repetitions, 3, rest, 3, rest. And in addition, it also helps with some of the muscles down in that area, but it's very grounding. The next pose I'm going to show you is called the child pose. And obviously, since we want to be secure and safe in our sense of safety, and a lot of people right now are not feeling too secure and safe. The child pose is downward pose. You're in the same position as you were for the thunderbolt. The difference is you're going to go down, your hands are going to go back like this behind you. And if you have the spinal flexibility and you do not have high blood pressure, you're going to put your head all the way down to the floor like this. But if you have high blood pressure, you're not supposed to have your head below your heart. So under those circumstances, you're going to put your fists like this, and you're going to sit with the child pose like this. And what that's going to do basically is increase your sense of security, but it also is a wonderful spinal stretch, especially if you can go down and put your head on the bottom of the floor, or even just the one fist down, but once again, keeping the head above the heart if you have high blood pressure. Try those for the next couple of weeks and read a little bit more about first chakra. You can go online and look up other exercises as well. Next, we're going to be moving on to the research portion of our show. Thank you very much. Hi, welcome to the research portion of our show, and with us today is Ralph Turchiano. Ralph? And
thank you for the intro. Well, our first article starts out from some information, or I should say a study that came out of the British Heart Foundation. Quite interesting, even though it was done on mice, or I should say rats. The title of the study said, high-fat diets affect physical and memory ability of rats after 9 days. Usually kind of, non-sensational, didn't appear to be that great. But after looking at the study, discovered one thing. They gave these rats a high-fat diet, about 55% of the calories coming from fat, and that lasted for about a total of 9 days. What they discovered is this. It affected their performance so dramatically that after 9 days, their ability to run on treadmills, again, they were mice, was reduced by 50%. So being on a high-fat diet just for 9 days cut their physical ability, not counting the mental ability also, their physical ability down by over half in just a 9-day period of time. Pretty interesting. And I do wonder if it was saturated fats or regular fats altogether. But in any case, it's an argument against high-fat diets. After that, we come to a real common herb, in fact, probably one of the most profitable herbs in the state of California, marijuana. Now, the interesting thing about marijuana, a lot of people claim they're taking it for pain and pain-related issues. And in many of those cases, it probably does work. But marijuana, being an herb or medicinal, is a tool, and it should be used as one. Because if it's used incorrectly, certain things can happen like what I'm about to read. This came out of the University of Texas Medical Branch at Galveston. The active ingredients in marijuana were found to spread and prolong pain. Interestingly enough, marijuana contains a substance called endocannabinoids. Not the cannabinoids you usually hear, but endocannabinoids. And what these are basically something that can disable or take away the brakes that the body uses to control pain, especially through the spinal column itself. So, when people are smoking marijuana for long periods of time, they may feel better temporarily, but with these endocannabinoids, it basically takes away the brakes to pain, quote unquote. The electrical signals that would ordinarily have elicited an inhibitory response were ignored. Endocannabinoids docking with them in the spine suppress the inhibitor neurons and leave pain signals with a straight shot to the brain, basically. Also, to read from the researchers themselves, to sum up, we discovered a novel mechanism that can transform transient normal pain into persistent chronic pain, they discovered. Persistent pain is difficult to treat, and this study offers insight into new mechanisms and possibly a new target in the spinal cord itself, because that's where marijuana or the endocannabinoids from marijuana appear to affect. They say, quote unquote, if you had a toothache, you probably wouldn't want to treat it with marijuana because you could actually make it worse, the doctor said. Now, for more pathological conditions like neuropathic pain, where the problem is a dysfunction, they say, within the nerves themselves and a subsequent disturbance throughout the nervous system that is not confined to the pain system, it may be beneficial. But with a toothache, a stubbed toe, a slight headache, ironically, you can actually make that temporary pain a permanent pain. Kind of scary when you think of the whole realm of things, especially regards to marijuana itself, since people are normally taking it for pain. They may not be taking it just for the right pain. All right, after that, a lot of you heard in the news about the HPV vaccinations being safe, the Gardasil vaccinations and things like that from other manufacturers. Well, there were reactions to it, there's no doubt. A few more reactions than you would have to normal vaccines, unfortunate and tragic as they were. However, there's something you did not hear reported in the news, which kind of makes me disturbed a little bit because of the complicity between the political and the media event in regards to this vaccine. It was the corruption that was involved in promoting the vaccine. A wonderful article out of JAMA, the Journal of American Medical Association, in regards to what they call the risk and benefits of the HPV vaccine itself. Number one, they want to point out there are more than 100 different types of bacteria, or so I say viruses, that cause the HPV or potentially be carcinogenic, even though the vaccine covered the main 70% of them themselves. What they also discovered, too, that it's almost impossible to predict whether this will prevent cancer in these girls 20 to 40 years from now. That also the vaccine itself is only done in a small sample group, not enough really to even make a determination how effectively it worked. On top of that, the vaccine was approved for use before the phase 3 trials were even conducted. But to put icing on the cake, the main thing the manufacturers of this HPV vaccine did was they paid off a lot of the medical establishment, not only as far as in educational programs, but also to promote it. And basically they said, quote unquote, the report for Rotham demonstrates how the vaccine manufacturer funded educational programs sponsored by professional medical associations in the United States. The article also illustrates how the Society of Gynecological Oncology, the American Society for Coloscopy, helped market the vaccine and influence the physicians about the vaccine policy. Remember, they wanted to make this mandatory. And on top of that, the adverse reports didn't even come out to 2.5 years later, after the vaccine was approved. And one of the things I like about this article, from the JAMA especially, even if persistently infected with HPV A woman most likely will not develop cancer if she's regularly screened. On top of that, they said, when weighing evidence about the risk and benefits, it's also appropriate to ask who takes the risk and who gets the benefits. So something to think about next time on HPV. Do more research. And as I was researching, I wanted to look at information in regards to swine flu. A little article came out in the Australian press in regards to the swine flus could be used in what they call multi-dose vials. They basically sent an alarm through their medical community itself. Even though most pandemics, they are going to end up using a multi-dose vial. Why, they said? Because of this. Multi-dose vials, what they are, you have the syringe, you have a vial. All it takes is a syringe, put in the vial, pull out the vaccine, inject it in somebody. What they're supposed to do is change the needles. Unfortunately, it's so easy to forget to inject, pull, take needle off, inject in someone else, or take the needle off prior, new needle, pull, so far and so forth. That's easy to spread diseases. Multi-dose vials in Australia have been linked to transmission of HIV from patient to patient and hepatitis and other bacterial diseases. Now, to play it safe, I wanted to know if the CDC was involved in this, or CDC was aware. Well, it turned out the CDC is. It says, quote, in regards to multi-dose vials, this is from the Centers for Disease Control's own website, the improper use of needles and syringes and contamination of multi-dose medication vials can result in transmission of blood-borne pathogens, hepatitis B, HIV, and other infectious agents from patient to patient. Since 1993, the CDC has been receiving reports from healthcare providers doing exactly this in regards to vaccination programs throughout the country. So they're more than well aware of it. But again, let's look at the Lancet in regards to swine flu in regards to what you should think you should do. Well, actually, due to being kind of short on time, I'm going to move through a lot of these in regards to influenza, about Tamiflu, only being 4% effective against H1N1, and all these other wonderful things you like to hear about, and how they don't know how much you're supposed to give a person dosage-wise, whether there's any benefit, or what if it's even going to work. Let's just go to some simple questions, and I'll see if I can run through these pretty fast, that you should ask yourself prior to getting this H1N1 vaccine. Not to be anti-vaccine, but let's look at this one. If the virus has spread so fast, how many of us have already developed natural acquired immunity? All right, what is the percentage risk of complications from the virus? Many news organizations have told the public that it's a dead virus and it's perfectly safe, which is incorrect. They're using a live attenuated virus. Will the vaccine give 10, 20, 30%, even 100% immunity for how long? And will people need to get revaccinated every year? If the vaccine is totally safe, then why did the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Kathleen Sebelius, do this? Vaccine makers and federal officials will be immune from lawsuits resulting from the new swine flu vaccine under documents signed by them. If it is so safe, why don't they trust it themselves, and why did they give themselves legal immunity just last month to this vaccine? Something to think about before getting it. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you very much, Ralph. We appreciate it. Once again, do your research. Use our sources, multi-line, whatever you can find to get your information. Please do it for yourself and for your kids. Thanks a lot.